Hello again. It seems to be daily, daily, daily. Hello, it's Tuesday, the 9th of December 2025, and our news bite today takes a close forensic look at the war between the land and the sea, episode 1, Homer Aqua, and Plastic Apocalypse. Yeah, get your mouth around that. But as you can see, I've got plenty of headlines, and if you ever watch my ratings shows on Sundays on Doctor Who, you know I have slide after slide after slide. I will show you the truth. So 1.34 million switched off. Here's one tasty headline for you. Between the start of Homo Aqua and the end of Plastic Apocalypse, 41.2% of the audience, like Kaiser Soze and Usual Suspects, just disappeared. Like that. Who can afford, in this highly competitive age of terrestrial TV and streaming platforms, how can anyone afford to lose 41% of their audience in one night? Now, there may be context. I'm a Celebrity had the final on the other side, and there may have been drop off there, and they may pick up, as you know, in the consolidated. But there's the stark truth. When chosen between some tired celebrities who you've never heard of sitting in the jungle farting and eating some, a kangaroo scrotum, or watching highly polished production values Disney and Bad Wolf, they've chosen the kangaroo scrotum. There you go. Ka-ching! Doctor Who loses to the kangaroo scrotum there. So, Anthony Parkinson lost 700,000 views in the space of a few minutes and beaten by Celebrity Catchphrase and Antiques Roadshow. Apparently that qualifies as success for Doctor Who content these days. It'll be under 2 million on Sunday. Oh, he's getting in before me. No, I've got other data, of course, but thank you for that, Anthony. But there you go, 41%. Does that look tasty? Tell you what, it would frighten me, and I just do a tiny, tiny, tiny YouTube thing. If I saw people, I can see how many people are watching now. If I suddenly saw that 50% of the audience all decided, do you know what, I'm having a nap instead of listening to him, I would be going, you would. Or would you just slag them off? Because it seems that you know what these program makers are like. They'd slag us off instead. But good to see you all, everybody, and I will be up to my usual mischief with this ratings time. So that's only one headline. Plenty more to come, so stick around. But let me just set up the context, obviously. You know, and by the way, all of you are included in this, of course. I've only been going less than 2 years. We've hit 10.5k for that show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am stunned. I have to say, I am stunned. I don't expect it. I never dreamt of it. The ambitions were just to do a little hobby instead of, hanging out in the park feeding ducks. Oh my God. So thank you, everybody. Wow, that went down a storm. So big splash or damp squib is the big question about the land, the war between the land and the sea. And we will maybe prove that tonight. But thank you, everybody. I am, well, if I was speechless, this would be a rubbish stream, so I won't be speechless. This is all on the back of the lame finale, wasn't it? Where I said, where's the bounce? The great drama. So I will compare to Doctor Who a bit later, but let's have a look. Now, the first thing is, and we discussed it on that Sunday stream, let's take the favourable point of view for the BBC. This brilliant double bill. We're going to storm the schedules. We're going to grab the audience by the neck and let them be introduced to this new expensive world of the Whoniverse. That's that version. The other strategy is, how the hell do we get this out without it going flat as a pancake? Or how do we get this out there knowing that part 2 is pretty dull and lame and doesn't really move? We all have our opinions on the Trial of a Time Lord. I watched it and I enjoyed it overall, etc., etc., but I think we all know one of the criticisms is, those courtroom scenes. And part 2, we really were in one room staring at some fish, and the fish seemed to be calling the shots. And then a bit of a kind of, fly tipping event, and that was about it. Not much was happening. It was all in one room. So I think they knew this was a weakness, and so let's put it all out as a double bill. So you had a stronger episode followed by a much weaker episode. And by the way, part 2 is obviously written by Pete McTighe, and if he's the new showrunner, possibility. Ooh. And yes, I can see people are saying about Disparu. Disparu, remember, is on tomorrow night. Don't forget that. I can't. I'm preparing it like mad. I'm getting clips ready and everything because obviously he's funny and he's very, you know, sorry, there it is. That's what it should be showing you. The chat between Disparu and Senssphere tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. I will throw clips at him. You know that he'll have loads of stuff to say, and hopefully I'll have loads of stuff. It might be a good bit of fun, that. We've had the review. This is the fun bit. So yes, I can see in the thread you're talking about Disparu's video. As per blooming usual, brilliant. I'm trying not to kind of look at it too closely so I don't say the same things, if you get my gist. But I'll certainly enjoy it in detail afterwards. You know, first things first. So, the double bill, yeah, did that work on the ratings front? Well, Empire magazine, you see, the hype is still there in parts. The War Between the Land and the Sea will show the punch that the Doctor Who's universe can deliver. Would you be scared of this bouncer? Because it does. I think you know sometimes we used to watch John Conte and Muhammad Ali, and we used to watch all these fights, and sometimes when Frank Bruno and stuff like that, and sometimes you thought, well, punch away. Where's the punch? So first of all, I will obviously duly give the hype version first, and then I will puncture it to death. So TV Zone said this event on Sunday night becomes one of, if not the biggest new drama launch of the year for the BBC. Now, there's two ways of looking at that. If that's a fact, that's a fact. It's an indictment. If this is the biggest drama of the year on BBC One, it's been a cruddy year, because when I show you the figures, my God, despite launching against the I'm a Celebrity final. Right. So I've done my due diligence there. So it started, as you know, at 8:30. It's a 5-part series. How are we going to get through it? So the show created by RTD launched with 2.8 million for the first episode, followed by 2.1. Now, I'll have the breakdowns, the audience shares, what typically should happen on a Sunday in December with drama. I will show you. And then I'll compare it to Shooty. So basically, I think you've all seen those figures. I'm not surprising you there. But yes, the biggest drama of the year. And I have to say, if I had that effect of tumbleweed, going, really? Biggest drama of the year? I thought it was, I thought the War Between the Land and the Sea would be more to do with the Sea Devils versus the Wombles, because they defend the land.
We have other colonies hidden all around the world. We shall be victors in the war against mankind.
And I'm seeing Farsight saying it's got bad reviews. I've been collecting the bad reviews, and the rest of us, have been saying our truth, so to speak. I hate that phrase, don't you? So the show has, and look, these are the quotes, then I'll show you the facts. The show has become one of the biggest new dramas launched this year on the BBC, based on overnights. Ahead of Sally Wainwright's Riot Women, why have they picked a title with an R and a W? That never helps me. And other new titles, including King and Conqueror, This City Is Ours, and Verdi. And may I say, I've watched none of them. So that tells you something. Not only are these figures a success in themselves, the show achieved this opposite the toughest competition you could ever imagine. Eating kangaroo scrotums is top-notch TV, and we couldn't quite defeat it. Surely. The second episode, which clashed with the ITV reality show for its entire duration, was 400,000 viewers ahead of the BBC slot average. I'll show you. Right, let them just get the hype in first. Here we go. Right, this is the first official one, but then I go into a lot of detail, as you can expect. So the BARB data, which you've probably seen already, is 2.83 watched at home at Aqua, 2.06 watch Plastic Apocalypse. But you're going to get the breakdowns in a moment. The audience share fell. Now, it is true that I'm a Celebrity's finals started when Plastic Apocalypse is on. So therefore, you can see a lot of the audience have gone. Then the question is, why did you put it on Sunday night? You knew, I'm sorry, you knew where I'm a Celebrity was. You were bringing in this spin-off cold after a very lame Doctor Who. Not that you were linking it to Doctor Who, but a lot of us knew. So it had a very weak link to Doctor Who. It had no bounce. And on top of that, I'm a Celebrity's been going for 2 weeks every blooming night, building an audience. And this is the final, the denouement, the climax. And you put your double bill against that. Right, okay. That tells me white flag. Not excuses. As David Harding says, those viewing figures don't look very impressive. Wait till I show you the comparisons. But yes, I know what you mean. Tara, good to see you. I won't be watching anything to do with Doctor until RTD and Bad Wolf are gone. The shows critiquing his work on YouTube are more entertaining. There's plenty of them. Let's have a look. So you can see 7 or 8% of the audience disappear into ITV. You can see why. That doesn't say the spin-off it per se is the problem. People might have thought, I'm only watching... You see, this is the thing with the double bill. I'll watch one episode, 2... Space Babies. Do I have to now watch Devil's Cord and then the Eurovision? It's too much of the same. So that could be the issue. I'm not into this double bill lark. So that's a possibility. Second one is the competition. Third one, of course, is it doesn't promise and people weren't interested. And those who hung around, I am really worried about those who hung around because I think that would not have impressed them at all. So those are the stark figures, but obviously I'm here for the detail. So let's look at audience share first. You saw audience share there. On a typical Sunday BBC One prime time, 6 to 10 p.m, the BBC in December, so I'm being extremely fair, would expect between 25 and 35% audience share. Now, I'm a Celebrity's on every year, by the way, as you know, so everything's as it should be. But what happened with the War Between the Land and the Sea? 14 to 21%. Now, you can say, oh, well, the lower figures because of ITV. Well, hold on, just compare. Whatever you do, whatever it's up against, it was 10 to 12% lower than the norm. Just the norm. Nothing special, nothing unique. Those events that you can't predict. I looked at all the data for a normal night in December, only on BBC One, you know, set it up exactly. And this is lower by a factual margin that would be noticeable as a statistician. As Tomboy Chick says, who's raced from the supermarket, spent a whole bomb on a packet of crisps, it seems like deliberate scheduling to me because they knew it was bad. So in other words, we tried our best. That's your version. Woodhouse, this says to me that all the Sunday night dramas by the BBC have failed if this is the biggest. You and me both. Farsight, it would seem that it wasn't capable of holding its audience. Yeah, leaking like a... Think of all their water analogies. Porous, leaking like a sieve. There's a hole in my bucket. I mean, honestly. So there you go. There's one fact. If anyone tells you it's doing very, very, very well, look at the audience share, ITV, blah, blah, blah. Well, not against the norm. And I've only just started. Okay, then, let's do some other comparatives then. What about this one? First of all, you can see that the first 3 15-minute breakdowns I've got in a lighter blue because that was Homo Aqua. And then the next 3 is Plastic Apocalypse. Just so you can visually very quickly see there's the 2 parts. Now, green is obviously better than red, amber, rag system. So basically, it started after all the hype and people go, what the hell's this? I've never heard of this. What's this? 3.34 million. And then within 15 minutes, it's lost nearly 700,000. Right? Now, you know, me and John, Sci-Fi Chronicles 79, every Sunday at midday, thanks to Garbage's advice, and he's there in the thread. Hiya. We would discuss this in detail. In the first 15 minutes of a Doctor Who episode, we lost a lot of audience because, however the format was, we never engaged. Now, the first 15 minutes or so, I did find Homer Aqua, you know, you had a dead sea devil, shot dead, screaming, interesting. Hanging up there in a net. And this Russell Tovey Barclay character, you know, bemused about, I'm an accident. You still had the setup, the expensive aerial shots, the helicopter shots, a foreign location. You had the plenty of stuff that might go to just a normal punter. Gosh, this is expensive. You could argue in one angle when they were doing these helicopter shots, they were trying to make it look like a TV version of Jurassic Park. Do you know what I mean? But it lost 700,000. So did they not engage with Russell Tovey's character? And remember, I'm a Celebrity's not on yet. So it hemorrhaged all the way through. And I did, and I said on my stream on Sunday, I preferred part one a lot. It had a little bit of tension and jeopardy, and I could see where we were going, and I wasn't engaged. I was going with it. Part two, I just thought, oh gosh, can we get on with this? Now, Tin of Iniquity, with that title, I sat myself down looking forward to 2 hours of footage of cliff erosion on the south coast. Imagine my disappointment. Yes, yeah, I can see your point. We get this with Scarborough and the eastern coast. Yeah, there was poor houses going into the sea. Farsight, they probably thought, I wonder, what is this? Then when they saw it was Doctor Who related, they switched over. That's the other thing, and I'll get Disparu's point on it tomorrow night. Why did we need to make those little silly references to Doctor Who? When we watched K9 and Company, we all know why they did the Doctor Who reference when Liz Sladen mentioned, oh, it's from the Doctor. But I don't know why they needed to do that. Yeah, I just don't get it. I think a lot of people thought, oh, what's this big blockbuster on BBC One on Sunday night? And then mention of the Doctor and mention of monster. I don't know, you were pushing it when you saw a big orange and white grumpy fish staring at you like, you know, a goldfish saying, feed me. I think you were pushing it even on that. David Harding, doesn't that kind of imply that the next episode's viewing figures won't exceed what the second got? Well, exactly. Didn't RTD say this? This is the danger of episodic, that if you haven't got them by part 1 and 2, they're not going to tune in fresh in part 3. Blast from the past. I will move on, don't worry. Interesting. Somewhere I predicted that episode 1 would get between 2 and 3 million, but by the final episode, it will be down by 500,000. Looks like you're right. JJC, at 8:30, there would still be a lot of people who watched the preceding programme. Oh, you're so right. I used to teach a bit of this, you know, on the side. I was mostly English, but we did a bit of media studies. And I was fascinated by the TV battles where, yeah, basically you sandwiched a week programme. We saw this with Joy to the World, by the way. If you look at my stream on Joy to the World's ratings, you'll see how Wallace and Gromit followed Doctor Who. Strictly was ahead of it, and actually Doctor Who was the dip. But yes, it inherited until it just splundered them. So yes, you're making a good point there. So there you go. That's where I got my figure. 1.34 million have been lost in one night. Yeah, you can see why I talk about that sinking feeling. So there's the stark facts. Let's continue then. So the live viewers metric. Let's look at when we're comparing live stuff, all right, as in where we are now. So typical Sunday BBC One live, 3.5 to 4.5 million would watch. And by the way, I didn't want to just clutter the screen with massive noun phrases. Typical Sunday, December, BBC One live. And I've even gone as up to date as I can. Strictly results show on November the 23rd was in that 3.5 to 4.5 million bracket. Okay, there's your kind of setting the bar. Then you look at the war between the land and the sea. Expensive, Disney money, heavily trailered, heavily promoted, 2 to 3.3 million. Again, the audience share went down by 10 to 12%, and the actual stark figures are 1 million to 1.5 million lower. Now, since you're only playing with 3 million maybe anyway, because the terrestrial TV world has changed, that's a lot to lose, isn't it? And that's what I wanted to point out to you, everybody here. Absolutely shocking. Farsight, you're trying to trigger me with that giant rubber duck. I've got the videos, you know I do. But yeah, that's shocking, isn't it? So just a typical night in December on BBC One would get 1 million or so more. And that, remember, when we do typicals and norms, we don't have to worry about I'm a Celebrity finals. That excuse gets taken away. Okay, so there's that. I will continue. Now, to do a comparison, to save you time, if the war between the land and the sea got between 2 and 3.3 million overnights, we're comparing overnights. How does that compare to season 1 and 2 of the Shooty era? So 2 to 3.3 million. Well, you can see there, it actually holds its own. In fact, it started a lot better. Space Babies was 2.6. Robot Revolution 2.05. So maybe the tactic not to say it was linked to Doctor Who, they got away with it. They got an extra bit. However, if you do the comparison, when did Space Babies and Robot Revolution start? Around about May. Very different TV, habit. So it is hard to do this, because December you'd expect prime time. It's raining, it's stormy in Britain, and people want to just sit by the TV. But there's your comparison, because I think it sometimes does help that in one respect it's holding its own and maybe exceeding what Doctor Who managed overnight. I'm only comparing like for like. But remember, this is December, and therefore it's 1 million to 1.2 million lower than it should be performing. So that's not so hot. Okay? Side quest, hiya. In my art club last night, a woman mentioned watching the start of The Land and turned it off as she said it was utter crap. She didn't know it was a Doctor Who spin-off until I told her, and then she'll think, yeah, that's why. I haven't talked to my parents yet about this. I'll be intrigued whether they watched it. They knew it was linked to Doctor Who because I've been rattling on about it, but I'll be intrigued whether they thought part 2 fell once it was so preachy. And you almost factor in the mixed family setup, the dysfunctional family setup, all this kind of emotions on your sleeve. I'd already factored that in. So part 1, I kind of survived in that respect, but not all the preaching. I mean, because there's only so much we can take. Tin of Iniquity. The way that Sea Devil leader had human features and the others had turtle heads was a rip-off of Titan and the Aquamphibians in Stingray. If you've seen my stream on Sunday, Tin of Iniquity, I think it's that one. There's been too many. One a day. It's terrible. I did show the pictures of the Stingray characters because, yeah, they do a bit, don't they? There was something about it, though. When you I watched Star Trek Discovery, and who is that character who is like the deputy for Michael, and his kind of fins move when he's stressed. And that's what they've made the Homo Aqua do now, and oh, God. I feel as though we just copy all the time. Okay, more details, because that's what I always promise you on here. Expectations. Now, this is like for like. A typical December on Sundays on BBC One, if it's a drama. So I know people will mention Traitors or Antiques Roadshow, and quite right. And I've done that myself before, but I really want none of those trolls to say, oh, Brendan, you'd expect between 4 to 5 million for a drama on BBC One in December on Sundays. I mean, how helpful is that as a bar to be set? And now look at what happened with the war between the land and the sea. It's massively lower. So even those that were saying, but what about the final of I'm a Celebrity? Whatever. So maybe a slight dip. That's a massive dip. Compare the audience share as well, by the way. A typical drama on BBC One in December would get 20 to 30 audience share, and the audience share is lower. The millions are lower. I mean, where do you go with that? Woodhouse. It might be better to compare it with the Whittaker era, whose ratings-wise, as that was an autumn Sunday night show. I'll do that later, not today, because I haven't done that. I'll be honest with you, but I'll have a look at that Woodhouse because that's fair in that respect. Let's have a look. Tomboy chick. Every time Salt got angry, her fin stood to attention, and then she turned into a man. Toxic masculinity. That message is starting to get a little bit tiresome, isn't it? So there you go on that one. Am I missing something about where's the good news? Because I couldn't see it. So when TV Zone I read out and they said it's the biggest drama of the year for BBC One, I thought, oh, well, then something's gone wrong then with their norm. It is surely a concern. And by the way, and I'm going to say it now before somebody, you've seen the YouTube comments, you know what happens. There's always a minimal amount of people who say something like this. You lot just always want to moan. No, actually, I was excited, even though my cynicism has grown. I was looking forward to something Doctor Who light, something slightly closer to what I absolutely love, Doctor Who. I'd have preferred Doctor Who, but you can't have everything when the showrunner's RTD. So I actually had nerves because I wanted it to do well, even though I knew. Watched it, and as usual, we have all our kind of concerns and questions, but I was willing it on. If I had Disney money, I'd have made some other decisions. If I was RTD, I'd have made some different decisions. That's, I think, fundamentally what we're all talking about. What a damn shame. Another opportunity to launch Doctor Who, and you've ballsed it up. May I say, we had November 2023, the specials. They got up to 7 million then, believe it or not. But if you look at it, it didn't launch Shooty, did it? And then Space Babies double bill did not launch Shooty very well, even with a Eurovision night. Robot Revolution, it didn't work. And this is the fourth attempt under RTD to give something a boost. And yet again, it's not working. So you have to say, if you were somebody high up in the BBC who was awake, you'd have to say, we have spent a lot of money on this. We've got RTD back. All the people who say they know what they're doing. And 4 times it has failed to fly. It's just hitting the norm, or it's just sub-norm. Yeah. Do you know, I've said norm so many times, I feel as though I'm an extra on Genesis of the Daleks, Here's a norm. All norms must die. Remember that part 2 when Liz Sladen was on the floor? Yeah. So yes. Moving on. Oh yes, he's our key one, so I'll scare you. Yeah, big yourself up, Brendan. Right, so these are the headlines fundamentally of what's going on here. And, you need to put your cup of tea down. You might smash the crockery. 870,000 checked out of Homer Aqua. That's while it's on. So don't tell me it's the reality TV show nonsense. So that's a 26% drop. Now, just hold that for a second. Between part 1 and part 2, another 420,000 tuned out. They just decided not to come back for part 2. That's a 12.5% drop. And then when Plastic Apocalypse started, they maintained. So they only lost 50,000 then. So it started at 2.05 and it finished on 2. So you could say, oh, that's only a 2.5% drop. Add the 3 percentages up and you are 40-odd% drop over the night. That can't all be I'm a Celebrity. It's just too statistically massive. And look, let's just say for a second, okay, it's been proven it was that. Okay then. If that's your argument, why the hell did you put your expensive double bill against that? Are you stupid? So I'm sorry. If anyone says, oh, it's because of I'm a celebrity, then you go, but only an idiot strategically would put your show against it, wouldn't they? We all know when this used to happen with the BBC and ITV, if they knew that the BBC were going to have a brilliant Saturday night, and Doctor Who used to be part of that, didn't it? You could sometimes see ITV would just kind of fill with some content and just hope for the best. They didn't put their big guns against. That was pretty rare. It was also pretty stupid for advertising revenue. But they've done it. So if they're going to say to us the reason is because of the I'm a Celebrity final, you're going to say, well, who's the fool here? If it's not because of that, and it's about the content of what they saw or the messaging, and I have to say, I like Russell Tovey. I liked him in Looking. I liked him initially in Doctor Who before. I have no problem with Russell Tovey. History boys a lot. But I had a problem with his character in this because I'm sick of seeing bungling idiots. A bungling, he had a fit physique, but he was like an idiot. And I just thought, why is this every man? Thank you, RTD and Pete McTighe. Oh, we wanted every man to be the hero. He's an idiot. He's a bumbling idiot. And I'll have a lot to say tomorrow night with Disparu, and I'll have a lot to say if you ever give me a moment to say, Unit is a laughing stock. We've joked about various sins, but what a laughing stock Unit is. He was an accident. He was a replacement for somebody else. It was a HR cock-up. And Unit didn't spot that. And now he's on a top secret mission. Unit should be shut down. And so some people sat there must be going, what? And of course, the other one I want to mention now, whether you watched it or not, she asks Salt, says, right, bring some water from the River Thames. And when they bring it, to be honest, the colour of it, you'd expect to see a turd at the bottom. Or if Lee Smith is watching, a time turd. And so basically, it was so brown, I thought, bloody heck. But there was a big tank there full of the fish from the River Thames, and it was blue. I know there's a bit of dialogue that says, oh, it's been filtered. But the Sea Devils and the Homer Aqua still had to come through the dirty River Thames to get to that bit. And they were saying, oh, it's killing us. And I thought, well, you've just swam through it. Why would you agree diplomatically to meet I don't know why you're even meeting the Brits, but anyway, you're meeting the Brits and other kind of nations in London, and the River Thames is so dirty and disgusting. Wouldn't you say, we're going to meet you at a Pacific island, actually? So, the normal punters there were sat knitting and everything are going, what is this? Oh, turn it over. I want to see Ruby Wax eating a kangaroo scrotum. Do you know what I mean? Julie, I like Russell Tovey, but think he's been used wrongly. Wants to be careful he doesn't get typecast as a woke. Or put it another way, Julie, he wants to be careful he doesn't turn into David Tennant. Because David Tennant, again, an accomplished actor, very good in Hamlet and various other things. Yeah, and he's like Peter Davison. He's always on the telly. He's always got a job. So, he's good. But because of his comments and because of various things and maybe overexposure, it can be a problem. And yes, I agree. I think Russell Tovey needs a rest now. I certainly don't need some of the preaching in some of in the interviews. Woodhouse, a better launch for the series will be 1 episode launch and then 2 episodes a week, or 5 over 5 nights. Were they not brave enough to do what they did with Children of Earth? Since it looked like Children of Earth. Nigel Jones, he's a man, so a girl boss has to show him how. Standard modern entertainment. Yeah. Standard, we could call it stereotype. We could call it formula. We could call it dull. We could call it predictable. We could say, so why are we paying RTD and Pete McTighe so much money? It sounds as though they've just done dot-to-dot drama by numbers. Gosh, I'm triggered.
This is our planet. We shall destroy man and reclaim the planet.
Fantastic Garbage Who's inserts there. Always give him a like and a subscription and everything. And he's trying to get stuff ready for me now, because on Friday, yeah, Disbrew might be tomorrow night, but that's one night. On Friday, me and Stefan are doing the missing episodes, The Abominable Snowmen. So we're getting our crazy cliffhangers ready for that. So plenty of entertainment. If you have just found our channel and you haven't subscribed, please do so. I don't normally mention it, but there's a lot of content coming out, and I'm semi-knackered. So there's your bold facts. Gosh, they're tasty headlines, aren't they? And none of them are appealing at all, either. I can't see how they can get out of that in an argument. So there you go. That's what I started with, the 41% drop. And actually, I've rounded it down to be kind. Now, season comparisons. This slide I used after Doctor Who seasons. And you may notice a similar trick. 14% drop in overnights. Now, you can see what we've been struggling from. Quite a massive drop. So if you said I'm a celebrity is part of the problem, and that's why we've got a 40% drop, Doctor Who normally has a 14% drop. So, go figure. You can see since Space Babies all the way through, on the overnights, they lost 1 million in a season. Well, this time we've lost 1 million overnight, but because it's a 5-episode kind of mini series, I suppose that's on point, isn't it? So as I'm arguing about Big Splash or Damp Squib, can anyone give me a case or an argument as to how this is a successful launch? This is an episode, this is a serial. So when part 2 dips so dramatically, and tactically, by the way, I can't see why when Pete McTighe and RTD were sat there writing it, they thought, what we'll do is part 2, we're just mostly in one room and staring at people from their water background, and we'll just kind of have a lot of dialogue about that. And then he'll go back to his hotel and they'll talk about hippies that were always right, and Greta Thunberg should be given a knighthood. That sort of thing. It's like, what? It just seemed to go down the wrong road. Kate Stewart in bed with her man on the side. I mean, she was nasty with him for most of the 2 episodes, and then suddenly he nuzzles into her neck. She still bores him by saying, I need to think about work, and then he goes, hey, bed. Forgotten Melody. I think the island at the start was in Scotland. Not an accent in sight. I thought it was in the Caribbean, no setting up the location. There was some great storm, though, wasn't there? Belly flopped. Great phrase, that, Tomboy. I might have to nick it for my next thumbnail. That's the other thing. Did you notice that how come in part 1, I mean, really, it was Close Encounters of the Fishy Kind, because instead of the light display that you got in Close Encounters, you got a sound display where they tried to talk and translate and communicate with the sea devil in the water, who kept making this kind of parrot type sound. But they managed there. So why couldn't they just negotiate there? And by the way, we've all just seen it, either with my review or the omnibus or whatever. But when you think about the Sea Devil's original story, the Master, with his little contraption and his little aerial and radar, was communicating with the Sea Devils. So why did we need this big fish? Why did we need this massive fish tank and pipes into the River Thames and this major United Nations of dross? The Master just had a nice little instrument and managed to do it with Trenchard. How come? They said there's such an advanced species. Well, we seem to have gone backward. Before, just a woo-woo-woo, when it worked. Isn't it funny how things have gone backwards? Do these people not actually watch Doctor Who? They say they're super fans, but, it's the bleeding obvious to me. Dragonkin. Great to see new names. Russell T Davies has been cursed by the demonic goddess Ashtar. All he can do from now on is write rubbish. He's hit a plateau, is my kind version, I think. Side quest nerd. Sorry, Brendan, I can't, as I really don't want to watch it. If it was good, viewing figures would go up. It sounds poop. Well, there's poop in it. The glass was full of poop. And she was telling him to drink it. I mean, what sort of negotiation tactic is that? An unexpected fire. Can they even be Homo aqua? They aren't humanoids since reptiles and hominids. They've made up figures. And do you know what? And I'm going to have a laugh with Disparu, I'm sure, about this. They kept telling us, didn't they, it's racist, Sea Devil. And derogatory. Oh, they mentioned that in the first episode. And then they kept saying, we're going to call them Homo aqua. We're going to call them Homo amphibia. We're going to call them Piscean, blah, 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 blah. That was the big Finding Nemo granddad who put on weight. My God, he looks like a darts player. And but it was just another human saying, I've decided whether it's accurate or not. And as Shirley, Mrs. Bingham now, married apparently, she just said, you mean big fish? That's what it means. Which is actually calling out, it's fattest. That big fish on the side, yeah, the big pot belly. I don't know how he fitted through the tube, to be quite honest. In fact, he should have taken dieting tips from Omega, because Omega managed to get through, you know, he'd lost a lot of weight for the role, hadn't he? Big fish. We'll call him Big Fish. How is that any better than saying Sea Devil? These people don't listen. Just because you've taken devil out, now you're calling them basically fat. Wow. Honestly, who are these people? Do they really think this through? I would suggest stop virtue signalling. Stop giving us more and more message upon message, layer upon layer, and actually try and make it entertaining. Anyone who didn't watch it, it's called The War Between the Land and the Sea. And for 2 episodes, we saw 2 deaths of humans and 1 sea devil death. That's it. No war, no nothing. So tomorrow night, I'm going to be throwing all the clips at Disparu. Me and him, the chat between Disparu and the Sensory at 8 o'clock. Be there. And there was the drama. 1.34 million switched off in one night. And it's only 5 episodes long. That surely doesn't bode well. And as people have said in the actual thread, surely your starting point for part 3 is around the 2 million area. Consolidated will change things. We know. We're always warned. Tomboy Chick, the ball between the bland and the twee. That is a very rude way of talking about me and Disparu. What shocking, Tomboy Chick. I know. I think you're talking about the other thing. You never know. Enzo, Omega gained quite a lot of weight, if anything. It was lean weight, to be sure. Oh, yes. I mean, his body mass index was amazing. Well, that was the rating show on Homo Aqua and Plastic Apocalypse. Thank you for your support, everybody. I'll be back on, as I've just said, tomorrow night. Hope to see you there. And we'll have a damn good bloody laugh, shall we? Yeah? See you later.